Occasionally, your back may bend down, but then you should straighten it again mindfully, as and when necessary. When you're stretching your back, at first focus your mind on your vertebrae by noting mindfully, one step at a time, stretching, stretching, stretching. Your mind must be noting on the vertebrae movement, slowly and step by step noting stretching, stretching, stretching. In this way, you will be able to apply the method systematically throughout your sitting meditation, and you will be able to keep your back in an upright posture. Furthermore, make sure your body is not twisting or slumping to the side. When you start sitting, your chin, navel, and touching point of your thumbs must be in a perfectly straight line. Adjust them if necessary to make sure it could be measured by a ruler. Once the body is straight, keep still and look ahead about 5 to 6 feet where you're able to make things out clearly. By doing so, your head is neither bending down nor tilting up. Some yogis used to bend their heads down in sitting meditation. As a result, they could hardly catch up with the meditation object, and they couldn't see it clearly. Their focusing on the object became intermittent. Sometimes, frequent disruptions in noting occurred. You should be careful about this. If the head is bending down, lift it up and start doing the 4 guardian meditations as described above. If you do these step by step, you will feel relaxed from the previous walking or other activities. Do not rush to note the rising and falling at the moment you sit down. You may have difficulty catching up with this object. You may even try harder but fail again because of fatigue or stress. This is not a good start for a yogi. That's the reason we use the 4 guardian meditations, to calm the mind. When your mind is calm, aim your mind to the abdomen, particularly between the chest and the belly button. Note rising once the abdomen begins to rise from the chest to the belly button, from the beginning until the end. See as if you were looking at the object with your mind's eye, not physically bending down with the head to look or see. Also, label rising as rising and note it continuously without stopping. You may stop labeling later when you become more skillful in noting, but you shouldn't do so in the initial stage. If you stop, your mind has fewer things to focus on and it will tend to drift away. Now, since you ask your mind to see the object with labeling, the mind is likely to stay closer fixed on the object. There's no need to label the object verbally, but simply label with the mind only. Rising, rising, falling, falling. Well, what you will see may be an image of the abdomen at first. Later, you will come to see the form or the shape. And finally, you will come to see the ultimate phenomena. Sometimes there are more than one kind of seeing as form and phenomena together. You will also see later how the rising starts, where it starts, and so on. The yogi's duty is to aim well and note rising as the abdomen rises, and falling as the abdomen falls. Do not think or expect what you will see. It works in the simple way here. If you look here, you will see what is going on. After a while, when you put too much effort into noting, you may get tired and your breathing may get faster, causing pain in the chest. If this happens, you can aim your thumb at the touching point immediately and note touching, touching about 10 times. Touching is also an object of meditation. Not only rising and falling are the only objects. When you note touching, pick a touching point and you can move your mind from the abdomen to the point where your thumbs touch or your hands touch or your legs touch the ground. Then you can return, noting the rising and falling as you can with ease. Repeat this process, noting the touching as you find necessary, and after noting touching about 10 times, you can return your attention to the primary object of rising and falling. So you will move between object to object. If you note touching alone in detail and with mindfulness, you will be amazed to find so many details. Touching looks very simple, but if you note respectfully and mindfully, you will clearly see complicated processes of physical phenomena working in your body. Sometimes you will have thought, and you are no longer able to note on the rising and falling. If so, you should note the thought as thinking. This means you do not take the subject of what you are thinking. Instead, there are some places where your noting arises, for example, in the rising and falling. Thought, however, usually arises in your head. Aim your noting mind where the thoughts arise. If you think about your home, do not note reaching home by taking your home as the object. Instead, you will aim where the mind arises and note reaching home, but paying attention to the mind. Though labeling is reaching home, do not follow its direct meaning. What's more important here is to note the thinking mind where it appears. You will note this about 10 times. Don't get frustrated when thoughts arise. Cetanupassana, mindfulness of the mind, is developed if you know how to note. When you note rising, falling, mindfulness and effort are accompanied in your mind. Similarly, if you know how to note thought properly, mindfulness and effort are always there. By noting so, the unwholesome mind does not have a chance to arise. Most yogis get confused when they have many thoughts arising. They do not know that these are mental objects to be noted. If you clearly understand and know how to deal with thoughts in your meditation, you will be at ease and able to note them when they arise. You will note them about 10 times in a regular and relaxed manner, thinking, planning, and so on. After noting 10 times, go back to the rising and falling and stay there as much as you can. Thought may arise just after a moment. Then you can note thinking again as described earlier. If you train your mind like this, later the thinking mind is likely to stop wandering. The yogi will not get frustrated with his wandering mind, and as a result, his mind will become calm, and he will be able to stay on the object of meditation, the rising and falling. most of the times, mindfulness of the mind, or Cetanupassana, was totally ignored or practiced very little, even though the instruction was given to do so. And yogis did not come to any level of understanding at all about what was happening in their mind. The yogi will come to understand about mental-physical relationships in greater detail later. Now, feel free to switch the focus between rising and falling and mental objects whenever that is necessary. Note on the mind objects each time about 10 notes or as needed. Soon your mind will become steady and stay more focused on the primary object. Another object in sitting meditation is feeling. Do not get upset when unpleasant feelings arise. No one can go without experiencing unpleasant feelings. If the yogi is diligent in sitting, then he will definitely face uncomfortable physical sensations. This is one of the meditation objects, and it is important for the yogi not to get frustrated and to be able to note them as they are. If not, the yogi may feel upset and cannot note the pain. When you feel pain, focus well where the pain is. In fact, we are here working to understand the nature of the mind and body. An object like pain should be noted without failing. The body itself is suffering, and it will disclose its true nature when we are looking clearly in the Vipassana practice. When you see your body is suffering, you will struggle to do something to escape this difficulty, and this will lead you down the path to liberation. If you feel pain, note pain in your mind, but also focus your mind on the spot exactly where the pain is. Likewise, for itchiness, note itch, and see it with your mind's eye, seeing with full attention as if you were looking at one object with your physical eyes, not superficially. This manner of seeing is applied in noting every object, rising and falling, Cetanupassana, and noting pain. Seeing in a detailed manner how the pain can increase or decrease. It is simply not enough to be aware of the pain itself. This awareness is kind of the awareness that an instinct that a kid or an animal might have. A yogi's awareness should be more than that. What you need here is the courage to see the pain closely and steadily and to note it about, say, 10 times. Then leave it as it is and get back to noting the rising and falling. If you can't focus on the rising and falling because the pain is super intense, then note the pain again, and repeat the same process as necessary, making sure not to change the position of the body immediately once you feel pain. Vipassana is in progress as long as you can note. Later, you will be able to focus well on the primary object. Even you can identify small objects as they arise. Virya or effort and sati, mindfulness, is accompanied in your mind. And also samadhi or concentration is involved when you focus on an object clearly. Now you may not see anything clearly since your samadhi or concentration is not fully developed, but progressively, once the mind becomes still and clear, you will see the truth in your body. It is just like a mirror.